What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Tears for Fears, and we're shaking things up a little bit. I decided to keep things fresh. I am going to jump around between the remaining live tunes on Songs for a Nervous Planet, some of the bonus or non-album tracks that Kim has made available, and a live performance in '85 in England, which is given the name Cape Fear, though I think this is a bootleg release. I don't think this is like an official release. Nevertheless, I figure it'd be cool to listen to some live Tears for Fears from the mid-'80s. And in that regard, I'm actually forgetting if I got this from Phil's collection, which is, I'm leaning toward that, or if this also came from the drive that Kim has shared with me. So either way, shout out to both Kim and to Phil and to all the folks who've been part of this Tears for Fears journey, which now is going on like almost 4 years, like 3.5 years, something like that. And yeah, so it begins with Mother's Talk, a song from Songs from the Big Chair, so an album that came out the year of this concert. And that to me is always interesting, or like likely to suggest that the song will be performed closer to the album or studio version, meaning if you're hearing a band perform a song 20 years after it was originally released, I feel like there's a greater likelihood, or at least the possibility, that the song might be performed differently, either because they're trying to change it up or because they've come to arrange it differently over the years. Maybe the lead vocalist doesn't have the same range, or his voice or her voice has changed, and thus they might set the vocals differently. But yes, this also being from '85 suggests to me that this will be pretty close to the album version. What I remember about the album version, number one, it was way back in my early days of reacting, and I think it was at a time when both the camera was not as clear as it has become, but secondarily, I used to talk a lot, which again, in my defense, when I started doing reactions, it was techno tunes. It was tracks that, I felt like I was informing folks who probably, for the most part, weren't listening to a lot of techno from the 90s. And so, yes, I just talked a lot more. And, punk rock was the same way. And so when I got into reacting to synth pop and pop rock from the 80s, I kind of carried that over for a while until I learned to be a bit more sparing, talking while the track is playing, and to try to backload my thoughts and analysis into the outro, which I think is not only much better for songs, which have a lot more singing and lyrics than techno tracks, but especially for tunes that I'm hearing for the first time. So yes, I've learned along the way. I, of course, still am learning. I will continue to try to revise and update, but yes, I think this is from an era, or the original reaction to this song was from an era when I talked a lot during the song, so I would do that less here. But yes, again, what I remember is it has a lot of energy. It's got some tempo shifts along the way. It definitely has a bit of a dynamic feel, so let's give it a listen. This is from, again, I think a bootleg recording of a concert in England in 1985 from Tears for Fears, which is given the name Cape Fear, and the opening track is Mother's Talk, a song from Songs from the Big Chair.
When the wind blows, when the
Yeah, very dynamic and energetic, and I feel like it is the tune I'm recalling. Admittedly, it's not one I've listened to recently. I have, of course, re-listened to the albums I've gone through in reaction form, though in some cases kind of, selecting certain tunes to re-listen to. And I will say at the very least, I have not re-listened to this as much as some of the early stuff like Pale Shelter and so on, but I feel like there's maybe even a bit more energy and electric grit here, so definitely a dynamic performance. I do wonder who the female vocalists plural are. So yes, give a shout if you know that. I do think this is specifically in Manchester. I was trying to remember in my intro, but yeah, I think this is from Manchester. So yeah, ultimately a very engaging and dynamic opener to begin a concert with. And I do think Roland sounds especially good on the vocals. There's a lot of force and energy to his vocal delivery, which fits with the energy and the percussive rhythms of the track. So I remember when I did the reaction to the studio version, I feel like there was a near universal positivity or acclaim for this track. I feel like a lot of folks were saying it was one of their favorites. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what people think about this live performance. In any case, thank you again to both Phil and to Kim and to all the folks who've been part of this Tears for Fears deep dive. As I said, I think I'm going to keep shuffling around between this, the remaining live tunes on Songs for a Nervous Planet, which will be a nice, just about 40-year gap, not quite, but Tears for Fears live, 37 or so years apart. That'll be cool to experience. And then secondarily, there will still be some reactions, I think, to the non-album material that Kim has provided. So let me know what you think of this. I will see you next time. Peace.